Daddy, this is Daddy talking. All right, we're going to take these 150 head of cattle on down there. You set in that gate, make sure nobody gets around, gets back up in the hills. And you heard about a fourth of that.
Picture this. A velvet curtain sways in the silence of an emptied arena, and behind it, Reba McEntire sits motionless, her sequined gown a ghost of the spotlight she just left. For years, she was the Southern darling, the industry's crown jewel who never cracked. But tonight, something shifts. Tonight, she peels off the smile. Tonight, she whispers names into the shadows, and every name carries the weight of a wound long hidden. It begins with Kenny Rogers. To the world, he was a silver-haired showman, the polished gentleman whose smile could charm an entire arena. But to Reba, behind the velvet curtain, he was the beginning of a bitter education in betrayal. In the early days of their shared tours, Kenny routinely dismissed her ideas, brushing off her creative spark as naive ambition. He called her just another girl with big hair, and made it clear she wasn't a partner. She was a warm-up act. And it didn't stop there. He would quietly change set lists, placing his slow ballads right after her high-energy performances to drain the room's momentum. It was sabotage wrapped in sophistication. To the fans, they were magic, a golden duo. But for Reba, every shared spotlight with Kenny Rogers felt like a war, fought not with fists, but with control, condescension, and quiet power plays. And in that quiet war, she learned her first hard lesson: not all legends play fair. Then came Linda Davis, the duet partner who broke more than just harmonies. Reba didn't just support Linda, she opened doors for her, offering a spotlight earned through years of sacrifice. But what started as mentorship began to sour. Linda mimicked Reba's style, her stage moves, even her emotional delivery. At first, Reba took it as flattery, until backstage whispers revealed Linda was mocking her behind closed doors, turning vulnerability into a punchline. The final blow came when Linda performed a near-carbon copy of one of Reba's signature ballads at the very venue where Reba had made it famous. It wasn't just imitation, it was erasure. Reba held her head high, but something inside her cracked. Trust turned to regret, sisterhood into silence. And behind the red carpet, smiles, the wounds lingered, deep and unspoken, and the name Ronnie Dunn brings a bitter taste still. At the height of 19's country, Brooks and Dunn were the roaring thunder, unstoppable, celebrated, dripping with bravado. Reba, known for her precision and power, joined forces with them on a co-headlining tour, expecting fireworks on stage, not explosions behind it. But from the first day, Ronnie Dunn's behavior unraveled the dream. He showed up late to rehearsals, slouched past stage crews without a word of thanks, and dismissed every effort Reba made to coordinate.
Alice drove the 650, 700 miles from Oklahoma to be with me at my debut of the Grand Ole Opry, because we've been going there forever, all my life.
He acted like the spotlight belonged to him alone, refusing to collaborate, scoffing at ideas, and rolling his eyes when she discussed show structure. His comments, casual to some, cut like razors to her. Too polished, too dramatic, too Reba. She smiled for the cameras, signed autographs, and belted her heart out to screaming crowds. But inside, it was war. His arrogance wasn't just irritating, it was erasing. It chipped away at the respect she had fought for, note by note, stage by stage. What stung most was the illusion. Fans cheered them as comrades, but they didn't see Ronnie's cold shoulder, his eye rolls, his whispers that made her crew bristle. Reba endured it all with professionalism, but the bruises on her soul didn't fade easily. Because when you're expected to duet with someone who's quietly working to dim your light, the real performance is the one no one sees. But few scars run as deep as the one left by Travis Tritt. Reba once saw real potential in Travis. A raw, gritty talent that could shake the country music world in all the right ways. Early on, she believed they were kindred spirits, bold, unfiltered, unapologetically authentic. So when the opportunity came to perform together on a televised award show, she thought it would be electric. But what happened behind the scenes was anything but harmony. Travis walked into rehearsals with an air of dominance. He'd cut her off mid-sentence in creative meetings, roll his eyes when she made suggestions, and behave like the stage belonged to him alone. The crew noticed, so did the producers, but no one dared challenge him. When Reba finally spoke up, voicing concern about choreography and pacing, Travis didn't negotiate. He didn't even pretend to listen. He snapped, "Then don't do it," as if she were disposable. That moment pierced deeper than any harsh review. It wasn't just about artistic vision. It was about respect. And for Reba, that line had been crossed in public and in private. She went on that stage with a painted smile and clenched teeth, giving the performance of her life while rage boiled just beneath the rhinestones. After that night, Reba drew a hard line. She would never share a stage with him again. Not because she couldn't take confrontation, but because she refused to shrink under someone else's ego. That kind of bruise doesn't fade easily. It etches itself into memory, into legacy, into every choice that follows. The next blow came from an unexpected place: Toby Keith. He was brash, loud, and unapologetic, and Reba respected that at first. There was something raw and real about his presence, something that reminded her of early days in country music, when grit mattered more than polish. But that respect cracked the night he turned her into the punchline of his cruelty. At an exclusive industry gala filled with executives and press, Toby didn't just make a passing joke. He launched into a mocking tirade about Reba's political beliefs, turning her convictions into spectacle. The room laughed, but Reba didn't. Behind her poised smile was a storm of humiliation. She stood there, clapping politely, while her heart pounded with betrayal. Days later, he released a song that fans instantly connected to her, a sneering, thinly veiled attack on her values. It wasn't just satire, it was personal. The timing, the tone, the words, too pointed to be coincidence. Reba, long used to facing criticism from strangers, found herself gutted by a blow from someone who should have known better. When she confronted him quietly, he laughed it off. "Just showbiz," he said, as if her pain was part of the act. That moment changed everything, not because he was brash, she could handle bold, but because he was deliberately cruel, and unapologetically so. Reba walked away from that chapter not bitter, but colder, with a clearer understanding of who truly stood with her and who would rather get a laugh than offer loyalty. Garth Brooks left a quieter wound, but no less painful. They weren't just colleagues. They were icons of the same revolution, pillars in a world that was rapidly changing. Reba had stood in Garth's corner for years, applauding his milestones, defending his shifts in style, even shielding him from whispers that his fame came at the cost of tradition. She believed in him. She believed they shared the same loyalty. So when she approached him for her long-awaited comeback album, Heart on Her Sleeve, asking him to sing with her, it wasn't just a business proposal. It was a request rooted in history, in friendship, in mutual legacy. But Garth declined. No reason, no regret, just a polite pass. What Reba didn't expect was the real betrayal. Just days later, he recorded a nearly identical song with a rising, younger star. A duet that climbed the charts, a video full of chemistry and silence. Garth never acknowledged it, never explained. It wasn't just rejection, it was erasure. For Reba, the sting wasn't just professional, it was personal. She had reached out in vulnerability, and he had met her with indifference. That silence, it spoke volumes. Louder than any chorus, sharper than any lyric. And the fans? They celebrated his new hit, never knowing what she'd asked for, or how it shattered something inside her. Because the pain of being forgotten by someone you stood beside, that pain lingers long after the applause fades. And finally, the one that hurt on a personal level, Vince Gill. He wasn't just a fellow performer. He was someone Reba once considered a true friend. They had shared late-night laughs in tour buses, quiet conversations before curtain calls, and a mutual respect that seemed unshakable. But everything shifted when Reba's world began to crumble. During one of the darkest chapters in her life, when she lost her father and the media began feasting on the chaos, Vince vanished. When her heart was breaking, when she needed a friend not to sing, but to simply show up, he didn't. No comforting phone call, no visit, no shoulder offered in private, just a generic card in the mail, like a formality from a stranger. And as the tabloids dragged her name through the mud, Vince stayed far away, refusing to be seen with her in public, unwilling to risk his clean image by standing beside someone weathering a storm. To Reba, friendship is measured not by applause, but by presence in the silence. When it counted most, Vince wasn't there, and that absence, it echoed louder than any insult, more piercing than any betrayal. Because when someone who once stood beside you chooses to vanish when you're most vulnerable, it doesn't just break your heart. It changes how you trust forever. These weren't just petty feuds, these were deep emotional fault lines that cracked through Reba's career like earthquakes, unpredictable, jarring, and lasting. Each conflict left a bruise beneath the surface, invisible to fans but pulsing beneath every note she sang. Through each betrayal, she didn't lash out, she learned, adapted, armored herself with grace, but she never forgot. And in her silence, the pain took root. Reba McEntire isn't just a country legend. She is the sum of every stage she conquered while broken, every award she accepted with a shaking heart, every smile she wore like armor in front of cameras that never saw her tears. The industry tried to mold her into something soft, silent, and small, but Reba refused. Every cold shoulder, every backhanded compliment, every betrayal turned into fire behind her eyes and thunder in her voice. When she finally said these names aloud, it wasn't for revenge. It was for truth, for freedom, for the little girl inside her who once stayed silent to keep the peace. Today, she reclaims that silence, not with bitterness, but with a battle cry wrapped in dignity. Because country queens don't crumble, they rise. They endure. And when the dust settles, they stand taller than before, with scars that shimmer brighter than rhinestones.